Have you ever walked through a season when life felt like a forest at night? Every path uncertain, every sound amplified by fear, every step heavier than the last. Maybe it was a diagnosis that changed your plans, a door that closed just when you were ready to enter, or the quiet ache of being misunderstood. In those moments, it is tempting to believe that darkness has the final word, that if we cannot see the end of the road, there must not be one. But what if the question is not how bright the world is, but whether we are willing to carry even a small light? What if hope is not a blazing torch that turns night into day, but a humble lantern that shows just enough to keep us moving? Stay till the end, because this simple story of a boy, a forest, and a flickering flame might change how you see your hardest hours. Tonight's tale does not promise shortcuts. It does not erase the shadows or pretend that fear is imaginary. Instead, it offers a different kind of courage. The kind that comes from holding on to a small, steady glow when everything else tells you to sit down and wait for morning. If you have ever felt like quitting because the way forward seemed invisible, this story is for you. Let us begin with a single step and a single light. Long ago, in a quiet village surrounded by thick forests, there lived a young boy named Elian. He was not the strongest nor the bravest, but he carried a tender heart that often trembled in the face of uncertainty. While other children raced boldly through the woods in daylight, Elian would stay behind, fearful of the shadows that lengthened when the sun began to fall. His neighbors often whispered that he was too timid, too easily shaken, a child who would never find his way if left alone. One evening, fate put him to the test. He had gone to deliver bread to a family on the far side of the forest. By the time he was ready to return, the sky had already darkened. Night descended quickly, and the path that seemed familiar during the day now appeared strange, tangled, and hostile. Every rustle of leaves became a warning, every distant howl a threat. His heart pounded, and for a moment, he considered sitting under a tree until morning. But he was not entirely unprepared. In his small satchel, he carried a single oil lantern, the kind his grandmother had pressed into his hand earlier that day. "It is not much," she had said with a smile, "but it will keep you company." When Elian lit the lantern, its glow was faint, barely enough to scatter the darkness around his feet. He doubted it could guide him through such a vast forest. Yet something inside him whispered that turning back was not an option. Clutching the handle tightly, Elian took his first step into the unknown, his small flame pushing against the night. As Elian pressed deeper into the woods, the silence grew heavy, broken only by the creak of branches above him and the crunch of twigs beneath his feet. He held the lantern close, its trembling light barely cutting through the mist. Fear coiled around his chest, and doubt whispered that the flame was too small to matter. Then, almost as if the forest itself had answered his thoughts, he remembered a moment from weeks before. An old man, known in the village for his wandering stories, had once stopped Elian by the well. His hair was silver, his eyes sharp but kind, and his words lingered long after he spoke them. "Young one," the man had said, "never despise a small light. A lantern may not show you the entire road, but it will always reveal the next step. And sometimes, that is all you need." At the time, Elian had smiled politely and dismissed the advice as the ramblings of an eccentric traveler. But now, standing in the heart of the dark forest, those words rang like a bell in his memory. He tightened his grip on the lantern, realizing that perhaps this small glow was not a weakness, but a gift. The night offered no grand revelation, no sudden burst of daylight. Instead, the lesson came quietly. One flicker of light against the darkness, one steady step at a time. Elian's fear did not vanish, but it softened. He began to see not only the shadows that surrounded him, but also the path directly beneath his feet, clear enough to continue. And in that moment, he felt as if the old man were walking beside him, guiding him through the unknown, his voice reminding him, "Keep your flame alive. It is more powerful than you think." The forest was vast, and the night seemed endless. With every step Elian took, the trees leaned closer, their shadows stretching like fingers across his path. His lantern wavered in the breeze, its small flame struggling to stay alive. He tightened his grip and pressed forward, though a part of him wondered if it was foolish to keep going at all. Soon, the forest began to test him. A sudden gust of wind rushed through the branches, nearly snuffing out the fragile flame. Elian shielded the lantern with his hands, crouching low until the wind passed. His heart thudded in his chest. What would he do if the light died? The idea of being left in utter darkness chilled him more than the night air ever could. As he continued, the path became less familiar. Roots twisted across the ground, catching at his feet. Once, he stumbled and nearly dropped the lantern, his breath catching in panic. Somewhere in the distance, he heard the howl of a wolf, sharp and haunting. His imagination painted dreadful pictures, glowing eyes lurking in the shadows, unseen dangers circling closer. The fear was almost unbearable. There were moments when Elian considered giving up. He thought of blowing out the lantern, curling up against a tree, and waiting for dawn. "At least the morning will come eventually," he muttered to himself. But then he remembered the old man's words. "A lantern may not show you the entire road, but it will always reveal the next step." The thought kept him moving, though doubt clawed at him with every step. As the hours passed, he realized something he hadn't noticed before. Though the lantern's glow was faint, it was always enough. It showed him where to place his foot, revealed the roots that could trip him, and guided him away from thorns. He did not need to see the end of the forest. He only needed to see the ground directly before him. Still, the trials were not over. At one point, the flame began to sputter, starved of oil. Panic rose in his throat as the light flickered and dimmed. Desperately, he cupped the lantern, guarding it from the cold night air. His hands burned from the heat of the glass, but he refused to let go. "Not now," he whispered fiercely. "You must stay alive." His determination seemed to breathe strength into the little flame, and slowly it steadied, glowing once more. The forest, however, did not relent. Shadows danced on every side, whispering doubts into his ears. In his mind, he could hear mocking voices. "What good is that tiny light? You will never make it through. The darkness is stronger than you." For a moment, he almost believed them. His steps slowed, his courage faltered. But then, as he looked down, the lantern illuminated one more step of the path, and then another. Each step was proof that the darkness had not won. Something shifted within him. Though he was still afraid, he discovered a quiet strength in simply continuing. He realized that hope was not the absence of fear. It was the choice to keep walking despite fear. The small flame was not just guiding him, it was changing him. Hours later, when the horizon finally began to pale with the first hint of dawn, Elian stumbled out of the forest's edge. His lantern still burned, faint but unbroken, a testament to every moment he had chosen to keep moving. The night had not destroyed him. Instead, It had revealed to him the quiet power of perseverance, lit by the smallest flame of hope. When Elian stepped out of the forest, the first rays of dawn brushed the sky with pale gold. He stopped on the open path, lantern still glowing in his hand, and looked back at the sea of trees that had threatened to swallow him only hours before. His legs ached, his hands were blistered, and his heart still pounded from fear, but he was standing in the light of morning. Against all odds, he had made it through. At first, he felt relief, but as he gazed at the flickering flame that had accompanied him all night, something deeper stirred. He realized that the lantern had not chased away the entire forest, nor had it banished the wolves or silenced the shadows. It had only given him enough to see the next step. And yet, that had been enough. Step by step, moment by moment, he had walked through what seemed impossible. The old man's words echoed once more in his mind. Never despise a small light. Sometimes it is all you need. Elian finally understood. Hope is not about erasing the darkness, but about having just enough strength to move forward one more step. Hope does not shout loudly or blaze like the sun. It whispers quietly, urging us not to quit. In life, we often demand clarity, a full map of the road ahead, answers to every question, certainty about how long the night will last. But reality rarely offers that. More often, we are given only a flicker, an encouraging word from a friend, a memory of a past victory, a promise we hold in our hearts. It feels small, but if we choose to trust it, that little light can carry us through valleys we never imagined we could endure. Elian's journey through the forest was more than a trial of courage. It was a picture of life itself. The hardships we face may not vanish overnight. The fears we carry may not dissolve instantly. But like the boy with his lantern, we can keep moving forward, even if we only see the ground beneath our feet. The path unfolds as we walk it, not before. So the lesson became clear. No darkness is absolute if we refuse to let go of our light. Even the faintest flame of hope can guide us until the morning comes. As the sun rose higher, Elian blew gently on the lantern's flame and watched it fade in the growing daylight. What had seemed so fragile in the depths of the forest was now revealed to be powerful beyond measure, not because it turned night into day, but because it gave him the courage to keep walking when quitting felt easier. That small flame became more than a memory. It became a symbol. It reminded him that light does not need to be overwhelming to matter. Even a flicker can push back the deepest shadows. Even a whisper of hope can silence the loudest doubts. For us too, life's darkest moments may feel unbearable. We may not see the end of the path or know how long the struggle will last. But just like Elian, we carry lanterns of our own. They may appear small, a word of encouragement, a promise kept, a prayer whispered in the night. Yet if we guard them carefully and choose to walk by their glow, they will always be enough to lead us forward. So when fear tells you to stop, when despair urges you to sit in the dark, remember this: no one conquers the forest in a single stride. You move through it step by step, guided not by the absence of darkness, but by the presence of light. Hold on to your lantern, however faint it seems. Protect it, believe in it, and let it lead you. Because the night is never endless, and dawn always waits at the edge of your endurance. No darkness is stronger than a heart that chooses to keep its flame alive. If this story of Elian and his lantern touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who may be walking through their own forest of hardship. Someone who needs to be reminded that even the smallest hope can light the way forward. Your light might become theirs, And if you wish to hear more stories like this, tales that inspire courage, faith, and resilience, make sure to subscribe to this channel. Together, we can build a community where every flame, no matter how small, keeps the darkness away. Would you like me to compile Tuan Bokich Ban Tan Mot Ban Huan Chin Lin Mashje Ban Sudung Gaicho video?